connect the stream because everybody's got to connect their stream up and get everything running, and everything's got to go swimmingly along. And of course, it's there. It's working. Except the chat. Oh. But anywho, it's another fun-filled day. For whom I don't know. Of course, I had my fun. Well,
Be ready. When you want to roll, be ready. We're there. Respect our time. Time is money. Our car's running, our gas is running, and avoid this. Like this is, the person's going to cancel on you. Just order it when you are ready. And it's going to make everyone's life, your life, their lives much easier. But to summons the person and then they've driven across town to pick you up, maybe 5-10 miles, they've already burnt up gasoline they're not getting paid for, and then you say, hey, I'm here, I need another 20 minutes. It's unacceptable, passengers, please. You could do better. You could do way better. Be ready to roll. Summons your rideshare driver when you are ready. Thank you.
Hey, where have you been?
Looking everywhere for you.
You seen Bert?
I have not. I have not seen Bert, no.
Should we be worried?
Were you worried about me?
Not really, no.
Well, there you go.
Huh. Hey, check this out. In a universe of magic, what are the comic books? Doctor Strange, colorectal surgeon.
It's a great story. He does a bowel resection.
Yeah, terrific. We gotta get out of here.
Why? It's not such a bad world. We can chill here for a while.
Stuart, the people here think science is evil.
How's that different from our world? Besides, can't leave without Bert and Denise.
Bert will be fine, and you can always get a new Denise in the next universe. There are a dime a dozen.
No, I want this one. She's got a little problem with the sauce, but so did my mom. Maybe that's why I'm finding her so attractive. What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop that. Stop. Stop. Stop that.
It's not working. Why isn't it working?
I don't know. You're the scientist. What?
They burn scientists here.
Burn them how?
With fire. What do you mean, how? Wait a minute. If this universe doesn't obey the laws of physics, then maybe we need magic.
Okay, you know a wizard or a sorcerer or something?
I do not. I absolutely do not.
Remember when you could just say, hey, Alexa, show me wizards near me?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
What the hell?
Come on. I'm the demon Alexa. You summoned me.
I'm freaked out. You freaked out?
Mm-hmm.
Tick-tock. Got a lot of people waiting.
Okay, are there any wizards around?
Check it. While you wait, I notice your shopping list is empty. How you doing with paper towels?
Will you just show us some wizards?
Do not take that tone with me, buddy boy.
Sorry.
Okay. Here are some wizards near you.
How's it going?
Can't complain.
Stuart, here's a name I recognize. Bernadette Wostenkowski, Master Sorceress.
Really? Bernadette?
Yeah, 4.5 stars.
Well, you guys want this broad's address or what?
Walking, not driving?
Have you or a loved one been injured by a defective spell or faulty incantation? Call me, Abramowitz the Grey. Over 700 years experience in magical litigation.
Now what? Oh, hey Stuart, Kripke.
You know us?
Of course I know you. What do you want?
Can we come in?
I'm kind of busy, but okay. Excuse the mess. I gave up giving a shit. So, what's up, Buttercup?
Well, this is gonna sound crazy, but we've got this machine that allows you to travel between alternate universes.
And we just need a little abracadabra to jumpstart the damn thing.
Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm all out of abracadabra.
Word on the street is you're like a world-renowned sorceress.
Used to be.
What happened?
Not that it's any of your business, but the Wizards Guild of America claimed I used my powers while we were on strike.
What were you on strike for?
Better dental, residuals for eternal spells. It's ridiculous. We were out for 6 months and basically everyone got a handful of magic beans.
So, did you use your powers during the strike?
My neighbor's son had a dog, a little rescue, adorable, and called him Chocolate Chip because he kind of looked like a cookie. Anyway, he ran out into traffic and a car hit him. Then another car. Then another one. Then another one.
Got it. Cars.
The kid's crying. I couldn't stand there and do nothing. So I used my powers to bring Chocolate Chip back to life.
I don't see how that's breaking a strike.
Exactly. Let me tell you something about Wizards Guild of America. 90% of them don't even work, and yet they get to vote.
90.
Isn't there something that you can do?
You file an appeal.
Not really. I mean, there is a reversal spell that would give me my powers back, but the key ingredient's impossible to find.
What are we talking about? Saffron? Truffles?
Blood of an innocent. Not a lot. 2 teaspoons. Maybe a cup.
Blood of an innocent. I'm out.
How about you?
Me? No. No, I'm not innocent. I've had girlfriends.
How many?
One.
I can work with that.
You heard the lady. Stop weeding.
Yeah, you know, this is always, let's go and just pad the shit. Of course, you know, this is the other fun of going, hey, let's go and extend the RAM off of these boards.
So it's pretty easy to put it back.
Have you ever seen this annoying message? Your disk doesn't have enough free space. Well, apparently this is a global problem for the MacBook users, as you are lazy but you need to delete some files to make free space. And it might gives you further frustration as you learn that this 250GB storage is physically attached to the logic board inside your MacBook, or technically described as soldered to the logic board. So it's impossible for you to remove it or take it off and upgrade it to higher capacity yourself. And the same thing applies to our personal Apple Silicon MacBooks. So we decided to overcome this problem for ourselves by creating the world's first Apple Silicon MacBook with a removable and upgradable SSD storage. Well, it almost looked like the original ones, except this green prototype adapter here. It blends better in black anyway, but costs more just for a prototype. Just like that. No micro soldering required. So why do you need removable SSD? Well, the first obvious reason is upgradability. This is a 250GB SSD, but you can easily swap it out for 500GB, 1TB, or even 2TB SSD. All you need to do is plug it into this slot and revive the unit using a secondary Mac. You will then have plenty of free space to store your files and keep using the same MacBook without needing to buy a new one. By adding this M.2 port, you might wonder if the SSD speed is impacted in any way. So we decided to find out whether this modification slows down your modular SSD. But first, you need to have the Blackmagic Design speed test installed. Once you launch the app, and you'll see the write speed hits around 3000 MB per second, with the read speed coming in at around 3000 MB per second.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Pete, and you guys are watching Paid to Drive and Paid to Drive vlogs, coming at you once again, day number 1646, and proudly presented by PaidToDriveStore.com, so definitely go check.
So last year, a TikToker went mega viral after she posted a video claiming that she had been sexually assaulted while completing a DoorDash delivery. And
So,
as you
yeah,
can
4
imagine,
days ago, they
immediately
said
on
she's
TikTok,
standing
the angry
trial.
feminists around the world rallied behind her. They demanded
4
justice
days
from
ago,
the man
again,
and from
somebody else
DoorDash,
is
who they believed
reporting.
was silencing her. They were praising her for her bravery and praying for the man in question's downfall. But then, just a few months later, a police investigation found the man innocent, and instead, they arrested her. Now she is set to stand trial in the coming months. So let's get into the story of how a Ring camera saved a man from being Me Too'd, and how a dedication to
Whoa.
going viral at any cost could possibly land this girl in jail. Now, before I start moonlighting as a true
Here's the thing. We're still going by the factor of saying what Ring camera.
crime podcaster, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like and subscribe. Jump into the comments section and leave your thoughts on the story. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on everything we do here on the channel, make sure to ring that notification bell. Alrighty, so today, like I said, we are all going to put on our true crime hat.
Yeah, let's go and wait until this, because this is the thing that's getting me. They said this before, that there was a Ring camera that caught this. I understand that they can't go and show it because it's evidence and everything else, but they had full disclosure to them, not to the public, that there's a Ring camera.
We're going to walk through the evidence because when this story initially took place,
Because the evidence so far is just her own, and that's damning enough.
I was freshly postpartum, new baby on my chest. I was staying off of X as much as humanly possible, so I did not hear about this story.
Yep. Been paying attention since it came out. Folks, this is one of those stories where they're just doing an update. But I love it when it's somebody who's just like, oh, I just heard about it, you know, and everything else. And, you know,
Until yesterday, even though this is like the most perfect thing for me to talk about, it like there's so much intersection with the things that I like and that I care about online, but it only came across my feed yesterday when I saw the girl walking into court. I was like, this sounds like an insane story. How did I miss it? Then I put the time together. And so now, without further ado, we are finally going to discuss it. So the story here is that back last October of 2025, a DoorDasher named Olivia Henderson delivered.
yes, for everybody, Olivia Henderson in Oswego County, or Oswego, New York, arrived at a location, from her description, to deliver a order. The door was open, and the gentleman was on his couch, passed out, with his pants down by his ankles. And then she proceeded to film him. But instead of just contacting Uber, contacting the police about it, to go and get a welfare check, she went and posted it on TikTok. Now, this is from what I've been putting together from all the rest of the reports.
Delivered a DoorDash order. Now, this order, in the little order form when the guy ordered it, she was supposed to just leave it on his doorstep, did not need him to come take it from her, whatever. It was just a porch delivery, leave it in front of the door and walk away. Now, she says, and you're going to see, this is really important to remember, that when she walked up to the house to do this delivery, she found the front door to his home ajar, to find a man laying on the couch directly in front of her, completely exposed, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, her first instinct, I guess because it is 2026, was to pick up her phone and start recording so that she could post it on the internet, and here is that encounter. This is the original video, of course, with the explicit parts blurred out, because this is a family-friendly show. sometimes. All right, so for those of you listening over on Spotify, what you are seeing here is what I would presume is a naked, exposed, as an opportunity to expose himself. She, I'm guessing, is alleging that, he has some kind of kink for this sort of thing. It blew up. She had hundreds of thousands. This took place on my birthday. This entire thing.
But after so many people send an email,
is just an atrocity. People were commenting and saying it's public indecency. He left the door open. It looks premeditated, like he knew he was in since 2009. That is not a typo, I know.
explaining the reason why you were deactivated.
She is in distress. She is nervous. Dasher's account was deactivated alone. They had essentially just pushed aside because they saw a girl on TikTok crying, talking own home. You guys heard that correctly, because allegedly she actually opened the door, according to the police report that was obtained by TMZ. She did not just stumble. Cancel culture has to stop.
Now, notice this is allegedly, so she doesn't know shit. Past what we know. So there's nothing new. It's just the factor of I have to fill up time to go and make a comment. That's about it.
Joe Rogan has dropped the hammer on the Democratic Socialists, saying you can't just steal people's money. And this matters because the progressives are gaining ground in some states, while moderates have won in places like Illinois, New York, Colorado, and Michigan. The far left is winning. But it's looking bad. I got to tell you, Democrats have come out recently saying, look, we recognize there's not going to be a Joe Rogan of the left because Joe Rogan is just your average middle-of-the-road guy.
Today, we are going to build a modern original Xbox. We're going to use hardware backdoors to completely rework its software. We're going to salvage parts from a broken Xbox to give it a huge performance upgrade, and we're going to completely rework its design to make it over 35% smaller. Because let's face it, this thing is absolutely massive. You know, I still remember when the Xbox was originally announced, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. Finally, somebody is going to bring the PC gaming experience to my living room. What we ended up getting fell a little bit short of my initial expectations. However, we still got a legendary game console that gave us hits like Halo and Fable. But using one of these devices in 2026 is a bit of a rough experience. It's really loud, it looks horrible on a modern TV, and basically all of these devices suffer from a serious design flaw that's literally rotting them from the inside out. So our mission today is to fix all of those issues, plus install a whole bunch of other upgrades and make this thing better than it ever was. But obviously, before we can do that, we need to tear this thing down. And the inside of the Xbox is a really cool place with a ton of interesting lore. At the end of the day, this thing is basically just a PC, and you're immediately reminded of that when you remove this top cover and see two off-the-shelf drives staring back at you. That hard drive on the right was a complete game changer back in the day. The Xbox was the first console ever to give you built-in, practically unlimited storage right out of the box. And I've got a fun upgrade planned here later. Digging further into the system, you're presented with the main motherboard. This thing holds a whole bunch of fun secrets, and we're gonna get into them soon, but as you can see, the inside of this Xbox is absolutely disgusting. So the first thing I did was take it into my backyard and dust it off with my electric duster, which is a really handy tool. So I'm gonna include a link for it and all the other stuff I'm gonna be using throughout this project down in the
Always entertaining.
Video description. Back on my bench, I was ready to start fixing some of the issues that plague these old systems. Over time, the thermal paste under these heat sinks dries out and basically turns into an epoxy. On the CPU, it isn't that big of a deal because the die is really small, but the GPU's is much larger, which makes removing its heatsink near impossible. I've actually heard of people completely destroying their motherboards by trying to pry them off. As it turns out, the only way to safely remove it is to first heat it up. Once you get it so hot that you can barely touch it, it should twist off without much of a fight. But we aren't done yet, because this stuff is completely immune to rubbing alcohol. So I ended up having to steal.
Yeah, that's thermal grease, folks. That's not paste.
some of my wife's nail polish remover, which is an acetone-based solvent, and finally that started to break it down. Now, I'll apply some new high-performance paste later, but first we need to correct a serious design flaw that affects basically every Xbox. If you look closely at my motherboard, you can see that it's a bit fluffy, and that's because it's covered in a sticky acid that's slowly eating away at everything it touches. The source of this environmental disaster is this capacitor right here. The cool kids called this the clock capacitor, and its job, as the name might imply, is to keep track of time when your Xbox is turned off. So before we install any upgrades, I think first we need to fix this whole situation. Step 1 was thoroughly stripping off all the acid with more isopropyl alcohol. Getting in real close as I cleaned gave me a great opportunity to inspect all the surrounding board components, and thankfully, things here looked pretty good. Outside of some minor surface corrosion, I didn't see any major structural issues. So at this point, many people will opt to just remove the clock capacitor and call it a day. You can either desolder it like I am here, or just clip it off with a pair of side cutters. Technically, your Xbox doesn't need it to run, but to me, just removing it feels kind of lazy, so I ordered a complete kit of replacement capacitors, which might sound like overkill at first, but it was only 20 bucks, and as you'll soon see, I ended up needing more than just the one capacitor. Pro tip, by the way, the longer leg on board components is usually your positive terminal, so I threaded the new clock capacitor in place like so, flipped over the board, and then soldered it in place. And now my Xbox will finally stop bugging me for the date and time every time I turn it on. With that done, I switched gears and went into inspection mode, because where there's one bad capacitor, there's usually more. And sure enough, this guy right over here on the CPU's power rail is about to fail. You can tell because it's got a bulging top. Annoyingly, if you replace one of these capacitors, you should really do them all. So one at a time, they all had to come out. But there is a bit of a silver lining. First, I already had the replacements on hand, and second, you only have to install 3 replacements because these newer ones have a higher capacity. All these contacts are connected to the same power rail too, so you get your choice of where to put them. I opted for these 3 slots because later I'm hoping that it'll give us slightly more room to maneuver when we're installing some other upgrades. So, with our Xbox now fully restored to factory condition,
You know, it's fun to watch some of these gigs, you know, where people are doing this.
next, I want to turn your attention to the LPC port. These 15 contacts are the secret to unlocking your Xbox. Back during the Xbox's development, the LPC port was used for programming the console's BIOS. Now, unfortunately, on many retail Xboxes, these contacts come packed full of solder, so before we can tap into them and start having any fun, first we need to clear them out. This took me a little while to do, but once I did, I was ready to start installing some header pins. These pins will allow us to easily connect different mod chips to the Xbox. Mod chips come in many different flavors, but each one comes loaded with a custom BIOS that will allow you to do new and interesting things with your console. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because your mod chip won't even boot unless you install a wire down here on this contact known as D0. Grounding this data pathway during the boot process tells the Xbox to load whatever's connected to the LPC port. So one end of the wire gets connected to the motherboard, and then the other end gets soldered directly to our first mod chip, which is the XBlast Genie. This is actually a pretty basic mod chip with limited functionality. However, it has one very special feature that's going to be a huge asset for us during our next upgrade. But before we can start on that, a very important principle in console modding is that you should always test your work. So I plugged in the Xbox and held my breath as I attempted to boot something off of the LPC port for the very first time. So would you look at that? We are booted, which means that our repairs worked. And if you look really closely, you might notice that this home screen looks a little different. And that's because we're running XBlast OS off of the mod chip. We aren't going to spend a ton of time here, but XBlast is going to be hugely helpful for us when we're installing our next mod, which is kind of my white whale. For our next upgrade, it helps if you know a little bit of history. As the legend goes, early development units of the Xbox came with 128 megabytes of RAM, twice what the retail units ended up with. In a stroke of cost-cutting genius, Microsoft decided to simply remove half of the RAM chips while leaving the motherboards largely unchanged. So that means that if you're brave enough, you can actually double the amount of RAM in your Xbox. But also that raises the question of where you'd even get new 20-year-old RAM chips. And for me, the answer is simple. I'm just gonna harvest them from one of my previous attempts. You see, I've actually tried to do this twice before without any luck because this is a really hard mod. To kick things off, using my hot air station, I was able to simultaneously melt all 100 solder pads holding this RAM chip in place. After lifting it off the board, a lot of people will make the mistake of letting their chips cool too quickly, but rapid drops in temperature can lead to microfractures and all sorts of other problems. So it's important that you keep the heat flowing for a little bit. With that in mind, one pad at a time, I worked my way around the board and removed 4 16 megabyte modules. After giving them a quick clean, they were ready to be installed in their new home. And this is where things start to get difficult, but maybe not for the reasons that you're thinking. The initial alignment is a bit tricky as you have to line up 100 pins pretty much perfectly, but once you've got the chip tacked in a couple of places, alignment becomes a non-issue. From there, it's just a matter of soldering each of these legs to the contacts on the motherboard. And as far as micro soldering goes, these connections aren't too bad. In fact, this first chip only took me about 15 minutes to do. The real challenge comes when you start checking your work. Here, I'm using the head of a pin to inspect each individual connection. Any movement means that the pin isn't properly soldered in place and I have to go in and touch it up. But like I said, each RAM chip has 100 pins, so going through and testing them all takes quite a bit of time. As I start my second chip here, you're probably starting to understand why this mod is so challenging. 4 chips times 100 connections means that there are a combined 400 points of potential failure. If any one of those connections is bad, your Xbox essentially turns into a brick. And tracking down a bad connection is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. The last 2 times I attempted this mod, despite hours and hours of searching, I just couldn't find the source of my problems. But thankfully, this time we have a secret weapon. The XBlast is unique in that it allows your Xbox to boot with odd configurations of RAM. In fact, it even has a built-in tool specifically for doing RAM upgrades. And as you can see, my first 2 RAM chips passed the test, which made me pretty happy. Oh yeah. With that milestone under my belt, I started installing the next 2 chips. These ones go on the top side of the board where the difficulty ramps up a bit because there's just more stuff in the way. And also, I feel like I should point out that the XBlast isn't a silver bullet. It can't tell you exactly where your problem is, it can just help you narrow your search down to 1 of 4 paths. That being said, it is still hugely helpful and gave me the confidence to keep pushing forward, soldering pins, checking my work, and fixing any mistakes as I went. And after 2 long sessions, I was finally ready to reconnect the Xbox and test this mod, which I have been trying to do for over 2 years. 1, 2. But first, I actually have a big announcement. If you've ever watched one of my videos and wanted to learn to do this type of stuff at home, well, I have some great news for you because I have just rolled out the Modders Masterclass. It's 3 hours of high quality instructional content that teaches you everything you need to know from safe disassembly straight through to micro soldering. In fact, this very Xbox is featured in the course and I go way more in depth on all of these mods. Plus there's tool lists, tons of 3D print files, and direct access to Q&A with me to get help on all of your projects. Honestly, I've been working on this course for over a year now and I'm super excited to share it with you guys. So to celebrate the launch of the course, for the next 72 hours, you can use the code EARLYBIRD40 to save 40% off the cost of admission. But wait, there's more, because I am also going to be giving away the finished Xbox from this video. No purchase necessary, just enter your email and you'll be automatically entered into the drawing. And you might even get an additional discount code for the course. And now, getting back to our upgrade, I have some great news. 3? Yes! Oh, this mod almost broke me, so to see all 4 of those successes right there, this is a very good moment for me. Oh man, I'm pumped on that. So now that the RAM is done, we're actually going to ditch the XBlast Genie in favor of a much more advanced mod chip that's going to open up a whole ecosystem of new upgrades. This is Project Stellar. And for a mod chip, it is insanely advanced. It's got an OLED screen, more features than you can shake a stick at, and all of these ports for various expansion boards. But before we can even think about using any of those, first we need to remove that D0 wire, because Project Stellar comes with a cleaner solution. This little ribbon cable gets lowered in place and grounds D0 on this nearby capacitor instead. It's the same idea, but with way less mess. And now, installing our new mod chip is as easy as sliding it onto the LPC header. And with that, we can now leverage Project Stellar to fix one of the biggest problems with the original Xbox. and that's just that it looks horrible on modern TVs. And also, connecting it is a real pain in the ass. I mean, just look at this mess of wires. So my solution is the Xbox HD Plus. This little board adds a digital HDMI output that can be easily connected to any modern display. But installing it is every bit as challenging as the RAM upgrade. The first thing we have to do is remove the original AV port. And here, again, I'm using hot air to melt all of the solder holding it in place. Except this time, I'm doing things properly and protecting all the nearby components with some heat shielding tape. Once you get it good and hot, the whole port should just pry off the board. Next, to get the cleanest possible video signal, we need to rework the Xbox's power delivery system. First, we remove this guy down here known as the ferrite bead. And then on the back side of the motherboard, we need to install the small QSB, which adds an additional layer of power smoothing for the video encoder. Then we've got to trick the Xbox into unlocking higher resolution output modes like 720p and 1080i. To do that, I'm soldering these tiny wires into 4 of the contacts where the AV port used to be. Effectively, these wires will make the Xbox think that an HD component cable has been plugged into the system. And then the hardest part of this install is just working with this bizarre little ribbon cable. This guy gets lowered down onto the analog video encoder, and its purpose is to steal every single pixel rendered by the GPU and route it up to our new and improved digital encoder that lives on the Xbox HD Plus. This gives us access to the cleanest uncompressed video stream possible and allows this mod to look so much better than your typical Xbox HDMI cable. But installing it is super annoying. The multi-arm design means that you're constantly struggling to get good alignment on these pins. It honestly took me more time than I care to admit, but eventually I did get them all soldered down. And after thoroughly testing all of my connections, I was able to do the very last step, which was soldering even more wires to where the AV port used to be. This time we're stealing both power and the digital audio signal for our new digital encoder. All 3 of these cables get routed up and then soldered directly to the main PCB. The ribbon cable connects like so, and then this short little extension cable routes back to the Project Stellar board and allows you to control your video output modes through Stellar OS, which is probably the best part about Project Stellar. But before I can even show it to you guys, first we need to test my soldering skills. Oh man, I can already tell from the menus alone that this new HDMI output looks so much better. Now we're gonna do some in-depth testing later, but for now, I actually have some more easy mods that I want to install. These ones won't require any micro soldering, but they are still gonna require some problem solving. One big issue with these old Xboxes is that they are incredibly loud. You can see that mine hits over 65 decibels while it's loading a game. And a big source of all that sound is this old mechanical hard drive. So easy mod number 1 is just replacing it with a modern SSD. This will dramatically reduce sound, improve load times, and give us way more storage, which we can exploit in some fun ways later. Unfortunately, you can't just plug in the new drive. The original drive uses an older and now defunct IDE interface. So the first thing we need is a translator. This adapter board here allows us to plug our new drive into the old interface. But that alone isn't enough. As it turns out, you also need an 80-wire IDE cable. Compared to the original, this new one is much better shielded, and that gives you a cleaner signal, which in turn allows you to unlock transfer speeds that are up to 3 times faster. Which is going to be a big deal soon, but for now, to temporarily install this new drive, I printed out this little adapter plate. This guy allows you to install the SSD right where the old mechanical drive used to go. And while we're on the subject of sound and performance, why don't we turn our attention to the fans? My Xbox is in early revision, which means that it has not 1, but 2 dying fans that are making a ton of noise. Later Xboxes traded this smaller fan for a larger heatsink, and we'll talk more about that in a second, but for now, let's focus on the main fan. Here, Microsoft opted to use a proprietary 72mm design. So, in order to replace it with this high-performance 60mm fan, we're gonna need an adapter. Thankfully, there's a bunch that you can download for free online, so after a quick print, I was able to easily install this newer and much quieter fan. And thankfully, Microsoft used standard fan headers, so connecting it was equally easy. Now, for the GPU's fan, it's a similar story. Because Microsoft used a proprietary mounting system, installing this new fan required a 3D printer bracket. But in retrospect, this might have been wasted filament, because with a big modern SSD and a mod chip, I think we can safely get rid of the last noisy component. Okay, rapid fire recap time. After booting the system with the new drive installed, I used my mod chip to format it, and then using an FTP client, I transferred over a really cool piece of software. This is DVD to Xbox. and it allows you to rip games from the DVD drive onto our new SSD. This in turn allows games to boot quicker, and now that I've transferred over my entire collection of Xbox games, well, I don't really have much use for that drive anymore, which is probably a good thing because it's definitely about to die. Unfortunately, these old drives are a bit of a wear item, so putting it out of its misery was probably the kind thing to do. But this left me with a lot of free space directly above my GPU, and that gave me the idea that maybe I could install one of those larger heatsinks from a later Xbox. I was a little bit worried that the new mount wouldn't be compatible with my old motherboard, but thankfully it clipped right in place. And after taking a couple of measurements, I drafted up this new mount for the fan. Because it's going to be coming into direct contact with the heatsink, I printed this new mount in glass fiber reinforced ABS, which is heat resistant up to 100 degrees. The larger heatsink coupled with the upgraded fan should mean that our GPU runs significantly cooler. Or maybe we might just trade a bit of additional heat for some extra performance, because I just found out that you can overclock a modded Xbox. But we'll get to that later, because right now, with all of the changes that we've made, I think we've got a great opportunity to do something that Microsoft probably should have done 15 years ago. We can make ourselves an Xbox Slim. To kick off the process, I started by 3D scanning all of the parts. And then, after importing them into Fusion, I spent the better part of a week developing a new and more space-efficient case. I took the liberty of rearranging some internal components, but honestly, I didn't stray too far from the original design. After several rounds of prototyping, oh, hey, this looks pretty good. I was finally ready to print my finished design. This new case is over 35% smaller and should improve cooling thanks to some clever ducting. So, as always, if you want to download my design files and make your own Xbox Slim at home, you can scan the QR code on screen right now or check out the link in the video description. Now, unfortunately, with 3D printing, there's always a trade-off between speed and quality, so to get the best possible results, printing all of these parts was going to take me well over 48 hours, which gave me some time to work on some side quests. First, our new case wouldn't be complete without that iconic Xbox Jewel, but removing one of these things is actually kind of dangerous as it turns out. The first thing you have to do is remove the RF shielding, and here you can just kind of yank it out of there, but be careful because the edges of it are really sharp. Oh, also, ow, did I cut myself? Oh yeah, a little bit right there. Ask me how I know. And then once you have that out of the way, you need to loosen the adhesive that's holding it in place.
Yeah.
My case was finally ready. And to say that I was more than a little excited would be an understatement. Oh man, look at how good this thing looks. I cannot wait to build the Xbox inside of here. I know I'm an overexcited kid here, but you also have to understand that I have been working on this project for literal years. After many late nights and false starts, I was finally putting together the Xbox that I had always dreamed of building. This project pushed me in ways that I never expected, and part of me wondered if I might not ever finish it. But here it was. It was all coming together just like I had planned, and I even saved a few bonus features for the final assembly here, like this little drive caddy that suspends the new SSD perfectly in place. Or how about these customizable little nameplates that dovetail right into the front panel and allow for a bit of personalization? And yeah, don't worry, I also included some blank ones along with the rest of the 3D print files. And then I also made the last minute decision to rework the top of the case so that I could feature a small section made of transparent plastic. This allowed me to mount the Stellar RGB ring kit directly below the Xbox's Jewel so that it could be illuminated. Again, I'm not normally much of an RGB guy, but if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right. After connecting the ring light, I lowered the top in place, flipped the Xbox over, and screwed it together in much the same way as the original case. And finally, after all of that, I was ready to test out my new Xbox Pro. And right away, as soon as it boots, you are greeted with the XBMC for Gamers homepage. This is a custom launcher that I installed that handles launching different apps, all of your games, emulators, and even homebrew software. I actually found this cool version of the original Half-Life that's specifically made for Xboxes with 128 megabytes of RAM. And that's just scratching the surface of all the cool homebrew software that you can run on these original Xboxes. The additional RAM also really helps when you're running emulators. I've been playing both N64 and PlayStation titles without any issue. And speaking of upgrades, the graphics look so much better thanks to that Xbox HD Plus. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the original Halo. Not only is the image crisper with 0 interlacing artifacts, but you can see that there's also way more dynamic range. Just look at the shadows in this scene. There's way more detail because everything isn't getting crushed during the analog conversion. And if that wasn't enough of a visual upgrade for you, just wait until you see Halo 2 HD. This is a special community-made version of Halo 2 that takes advantage of all of our upgrades. Instead of the default 480p, this version runs at 720p and needs the extra RAM to support that higher resolution. It also utilizes our upgraded drive to load levels quicker and reduce pop-in as well. But probably the coolest feature of Halo 2 HD is that it has a built-in overclocking tool that can increase performance by as much as 10 frames per second. Outside of that, you can use a tool called Xbox OC to overclock the Xbox in any game. Our upgraded cooling system keeps thermals in check without an issue, and probably my favorite feature is that this Xbox is now whisper quiet. You can't even hear it above the noise floor in my room. Another game changer is the inclusion of wireless controller support thanks to the Stellar Plus. Here I've got both my Xbox Series X controller and my 8BitDo Ultimate 2 connected at the same time. Not only are wireless controllers more convenient, but their modern ergonomics are so much better than the original controllers. So that is it for my modern Xbox. And as much as I love it, I'm also very excited to give it away to one of you guys at home to celebrate the launch of my course. Again, you can scan the QR code on screen right now or check out the link down in the video description. Not only will you get a chance to win this Xbox, but you're also going to get a hefty discount on my Modders Masterclass, which will...
Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? Apple's Mac Pro desktop from 2013 certainly caught a lot of attention with its bold new design, but also for its technical limitations. The landscape for high-performance computing has changed dramatically since its launch, though, so let's see where, or if, the so-called trash can Mac still fits in. Prices for used 2013 Mac Pros started falling dramatically, and I decided it was finally time to pick one up to check out for myself. When new, these machines had a starting price of $3,000 US, but the base model I bought cost me only a tenth of that. It arrived in overall good condition, with just a few small scratches from normal wear. The machine booted to a fresh installation of macOS 10 Yosemite, but I updated it to macOS Monterey, the latest it would support. Sure enough, this was the base spec model with a quad-core Intel Xeon E5 1650 V2 processor, 16GB of RAM, dual AMD FirePro D300 GPUs, and a 256GB SSD. I wanted to get some performance benchmarks, so I fired up Geekbench 5 and ran its CPU tests, yielding scores of 871 for a single core and 3514 for all of them. But that only tells part of the story, so I ran the machine through a 10-minute Cinebench R23 loop where it scored 3763, which placed it at the bottom of the list. SSD performance was also a curiosity, and the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test app showed figures of about 750 megabytes per second on writes and 950 megabytes on reads. In 2013, these numbers may have been compelling, but they aren't so much anymore. Thankfully, though, there's ample
This was another issue this weekend.
Severe weather ramming across parts of our area Saturday afternoon. Torrential downpours, even high winds that caused a significant amount of damage in several towns and cities. Among all of that, as you can see in this drone video, a partial building collapse in Springfield South End neighborhood, displacing nearly 4 dozen people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Western Mass News at 7 a.m. I'm Madison Listowski. We're bringing you team coverage this morning after that severe weather. First Alert meteorologist Jana Brown is here with us on this Sunday, and she's going to be breaking down the impact and who exactly got hit the hardest amid this severe weather, and that's going to be in just a moment. But first, we're going to send things right over to reporter Matt Price. He's live at a concerning scene, a partial roof collapse in Springfield South End. Matt, what?
Yeah, you know, there was a lot of stuff that Saturday just went like this and said, nope, was not going to be out for it after the storm. So yeah, it's a fun day here.
There's a name sitting inside a trademark filing in the United States that was never supposed to be funny, and it turned out to be one of the most brutal jokes ever aimed at a trillion-dollar empire, and that name is MacroHard. 3 syllables away from Microsoft, close enough that nobody can pretend it is a coincidence, and far enough that nobody can sue over it. And the man who filed it is the same man who has spent the last few years dismantling entire industries, one supercomputer at a time. Pox. And by the time you finish this video, you are going to understand exactly why a joke like that can make grown executives in Redmond lose sleep at night. Because this is not really a story about a funny name. This is a story about what happens when the world's most dominant software company spends 30 years training its own customers to tolerate a little bit of friction, a little bit of forced upgrading, a little bit of advertising, shoved into places advertising was never supposed to live. Until one day, the friction stops being a little bit and becomes the entire experience. And a competitor with more compute than almost anyone else on the planet shows up right when the patience finally runs out. So let's rewind, because to understand how we got here, you have to go back to a promise, an almost embarrassingly simple promise that a young Bill Gates made decades ago, a computer on every desk and in every home, and for a very long time that promise was the whole story. Windows became the invisible default, the operating system nobody chose because it was simply already there the moment you opened the box. And defaults are the most powerful force in technology, because people rarely question the thing that requires 0 decisions. But defaults are also fragile in a way people don't appreciate until the moment they break. And Windows 11 is where the cracks started showing in public, because when Microsoft rolled out its compatibility checker for the new operating system, well, the tool itself confirmed that a huge share of existing Windows 10 machines that still worked perfectly fine, could not make the jump. Not because they were slow, not because they were broken, but because they lacked a specific security chip that had only become standard in consumer hardware a handful of years earlier, and suddenly millions of functional computers were staring down an artificial expiration date. At the exact same time, Microsoft was publishing glossy sustainability reports about its commitment to reducing electronic waste. And if you want to understand corporate contradiction in its purest form, that image sitting side by side is a pretty good place to start. But the hardware wall was only the opening move. Because once you actually got Windows 11 running, the installation process itself started making decisions for you that it never used to make. Windows 11 Home effectively required signing in with a Microsoft account just to finish setup, with no simple offline option the way there always used to be, and the ability to create a plain local account. Something that had existed since the earliest days of Windows, got buried under layer after layer of deliberate friction until it was barely reachable at all, and when technically savvy users found workarounds, those workarounds got patched out one release at a time. And here's the detail that really tells you everything about the intent behind this. Even Rufus, a free open source tool used by IT professionals across the entire world to create bootable Windows installation drives, ran into download restrictions that its own developer stated publicly were not an accident, were not a bug, but were the direct result of a deliberate decision made somewhere inside Microsoft. And once you understand why, the whole picture snaps into focus, because every single person funneled through a mandatory Microsoft account becomes a data point, a target for a Microsoft 365 upsell, a nudge toward OneDrive storage, a name on an advertising list. And the monetization did not stop once you were finally inside the operating system. It just changed shape. The start menu began surfacing. Paid promotional placements, File Explorer started nagging people toward cloud storage they never asked for. The lock screen turned into a feed of sponsored tips, and the weather widget came bundled with advertising sitting right next to it. So picture the actual person on the other end of this, someone who spent real money on their own hardware they own outright, opening it up to discover that the software running their machine has quietly become another advertising surface pointed directly back at them. And that kind of low-grade, constant friction does something to people over time. It does not create a single dramatic moment of rebellion. It creates a slow accumulating resentment. And resentment like that eventually looks for somewhere else to go. And it found somewhere else to go because on the exact same day, Microsoft ended mainstream support for Windows 10, a Linux distribution called Zorin OS, built specifically to feel instantly familiar to a displaced Windows user, launched publicly, and the timing was not an accident. Within 48 hours, it had logged more than 100,000 downloads. Within a month, that number crossed 1 million, and by early the following year, the developers behind it confirmed the total had passed 2 million downloads, with the overwhelming majority coming directly from Windows machines rather than existing Linux enthusiasts simply switching distributions, meaning these were ordinary Windows users. The exact customer base Microsoft had spent decades cultivating, walking straight out the front door, and it was not just individual users either. Entire governments started making the same calculation. A major German state government began the process of migrating tens of thousands of computers off Microsoft products entirely, and France's National Police Force, already running well over 100,000 machines on Linux, documented a significant reduction in total cost of ownership as a direct result. And globally, the share of desktop computers running Linux started climbing in a way it never had before, moving from a rounding error a few years earlier to a genuinely meaningful slice of the market, with some countries pushing far higher than the global average. So this is the environment. This is the actual state of the battlefield. The moment Elon Musk decided to file a trademark application for something called MacroHard under his artificial intelligence company. And here is what makes this move different from 100 other Musk headlines you have scrolled past without a second thought. This was not framed as a hardware company. It was not framed as a chip company. It was explicitly framed as a fully AI-native software company, one built from the ground up around the idea that teams of specialized artificial intelligence agents could simulate the internal functions of an entire traditional software company. Engineering, testing, deployment, iteration, running continuously, without the org chart, without the management layers, without the fixed costs that
Your phone can talk to the world, but only the part of it connected to the legacy telecom stack. But soon, that same phone will be able to discover, connect to, and exchange encrypted data with a mesh network spanning Bluetooth, LoRa, even over-the-horizon packet radio. No internet required. Together, these otherwise disconnected communication networks become a kind of super mesh, one network of networks that can use whatever path is available. Unlike 5G cellular or fiber internet, the networks we're talking about are free to use and open source. It's the foundation for a parallel internet that no single company owns or controls, something today's telecom stack was never designed to provide. This is Reticulum, an open, cryptographically complete networking stack for building resilient networks over just about any medium that can push ones and zeros. Instead of relying on IP addresses and fixed infrastructure, it uses cryptographic destinations to find a path across whatever links are available, even if they're completely offline. Same permissionless, community-operated spirit as Web3, except without the casino. It's basically the blockchain of communication. That means no monthly subscriptions, no central service sitting in the middle, and privacy by default. And over the past few months, the Reticulum ecosystem has really come alive. New hardware, new apps, and more builders pushing it forward. I don't think people understand how transformative the next era of the internet is going to be. But for Reticulum to live up to the hype and actually be ready for prime time, it can't only work for radio heads willing to assemble elaborate hardware. Everyday people need to be able to use it on devices that they already understand, whether you're at home or deep in the backcountry or somewhere that conventional infrastructure has failed. Joining the network should still begin with a device you already understand, which presents us with one clean challenge. Can my partner Amelia, who has...
So yeah, this is Meshtastic implementation.
Remember getting sucked into watching the Weather Channel for hours? Or watching the preview channel scroll and scroll waiting for your channel to come back around? Then channel surfing until you accidentally landed on something unexpected and amazing? TV used to hit different, before streaming fractured everything into 1,000 services, before algorithms decided what you'd watch next. There was something about just turning on the TV and seeing what was on. You'd stumble into things, get stuck watching stuff you never intended to, build actual routines.
So yeah, this is one of my fun ones of the day. Wasn't one of my best ones. Yesterday was entertaining a bit, considering the fact that a passenger went like this from Northampton to Amherst. Passenger started going, I can't continue this trip. There's a smell in here. Now, I keep my car immaculate. But without stating what the smell was, and or anything else, they just canceled out the trip right there. This was a trip that was supposed to go all the way across the state. So I had to immediately stop the trip. Not, try to figure out what the smell is or whatever. And of course, this is the thing is that it isn't just the fact you canceled the trip and I had to go and stop and let them out and then, leave the area. I had to start declining his same trip. But, the funnier part is that his trip went up. I was already going to be paid $85 for that trip when it was in Northampton. I got paid $21, and both times that they were advertising it back to me, it went up higher. And I had to contact them and say, look, you keep on offering this. This guy has made a complaint that there's a smell. Why am I having this all of a sudden with the fact that you're sending it out to me again? Now, to be fair, Uber went and said, oh, we're sorry. We're not going to match you with this person again. And we're giving you 10 Uber points to your Pro Point thing. You know, it's just how it is, folks. You know, and then what's even worse is watching somebody, of course, go like this, miss the entrance to a location, back up to the entrance, not realizing that you just go down a little bit further, maybe 30 yards or less, and take another turn, and you would be right there. Here's the even funnier part is that my buddy's Tesla automatically chooses that route than the main route because that route doesn't cross traffic as badly as the other route. So yeah, you know, it's funny to watch somebody, you know, and I know there's backup cameras, sensors, and everything else, everything that can prevent an accident, but still you're not supposed to go backwards out on the main road where you could easily go forward. And then see the person with an Uber Lyft sign doing this. So as far as I'm concerned, thank you very much for giving people the idea that we don't give a shit. And then when you parked, and that was even funnier, is to watch them park diagonally at the Starbucks. That was like extreme, you know, I don't give a fuckery. And that's where it's just hilarious watching people that just trust that GPS way too much. That's really what it was.
Around programming blocks. It wasn't always good television,
if you
but
see
it was
this
ours.
video later, please leave a comment. You know, I'd appreciate it.
Wouldn't you like to recreate that golden age? A while back, I set out to create a simulator called Field Station 42. It's a way to recreate the broadcasting cable television experiences you remember, but using your own media. I made a couple of videos about it. The first was about a broadcast simulator for 70s and 80s style TV. I built it in a cigar box using a Raspberry Pi and an old school antenna tuner to change the channel. In the second, I designed and 3D printed a replica cable box, dropped a Raspberry Pi inside, and configured it to replicate 90s style cable. Both of those builds used a Raspberry Pi, but Field Station 42 doesn't require one. It runs on anything that runs Linux, mini PCs, desktop computers, whatever you've got. It's written in Python and it's fully open source, so anyone can use or modify it however they like. Since then, the community has really run with it. People have built it into actual vintage cable boxes running on old CRTs, custom enclosures running on modern flat screen TVs, all kinds of things. It's a maker project at heart, and the whole point is
Stan Civek with a little bit of history in front of the second town hall built in Washington, Massachusetts. The first stood on the other side of the road.
Leave them. They're mine.
I don't need your help. I got it just fine. What are you doing? Get it off of me! There you go. Power of the sun.
The palm of your hand.
Peter?
Otto.
Oh, it's good to see you, dear boy.
It's good to see you.
You're all grown up. How are you?
Trying to do better.
Leave them.
Wait, it seems that magic always has a price.
And your point is?
What would I have to give to make you lift your spell on Diana?
Well, now you're getting interesting. I want something from you that's very precious. Something you've worked very hard to conceal. Something so shattering.
Thank you very much for watching.
There was a time I was your only one. But now I'm the sad and lonely one.